Where was I before the break? I was talking about the difference between, I can hear a phone ringing, it's out there. The difference between observations, interpretations and analysis. What I'm going to cover here the last 45 minutes is, again, you feel the suspense going on there? Well, tell us. I'm going to talk about the external curiosity and the internal curiosity and how we can make these two, not, I wouldn't say worlds, but how we can make these two things interchangeably relate to one another so that we may show up attractive. I talked before about motives. We can't really see other people's motives, so that's why interpreting things is sometimes an exercise in futility. I kind of like this image. It's a beach. If anybody can guess where it is, I'll give you an ice cream. No, I won't. But there's some... What's that?
Hawaii?
Yeah, how did you know? Yay! Yay! Oh, damn, I have to give it. Marlon, would you give this gentleman an ice cream, please?
No, the only place Ross and you have mentioned was Hawaii.
Oh, so you just deduced from the... Oh, so you... that is interesting. You interpreted the information you had at hand, and then you made a very smart deduction, and then you... Oh, interesting.
I'm waiting for the reward.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you're actually quite clever. But that sounded sarcastic, didn't it? But I'm actually... No, but it was actually... I like your way of thinking. Well, what's interesting about his answer is, of course, that he looks at the possible interpretation. He looks at motivation. He looks at motives. Where might this picture be? Well, what do I know about the woman that's standing there? What do I know about beaches in general? What do I know about the relation that she has with the man that is also here? And oh, he mentioned something about that might be. I don't know exactly that's how you're, but you know. Other people might have done something a little different. You might have looked at the image and you might have thought, well, there's a sea, so it could be pretty much anywhere. There's a lot of water on the planet Earth. Well, there's palm trees, so it's probably not Sussex, and we could go on forever. And depending on how broad your frame of reference is, depending on how much you've traveled and watched Discovery Channel and looked at Nat Geo Wild and other things of that nature, you may or may not have a clear idea of where that might actually be. And you see how what we already have within our cognitive maps pretty much determines what our interpretations of the world actually are. But the main reason why I brought this up is because there are footsteps right there, and I thought it was a brilliant way of illustrating how we can only know motives after the fact. We can pretty fairly observe somebody has been walking there, and if we zoomed in on the image we could see that the person had in fact been walking this way, which might give somebody the conclusion, or somebody might draw the conclusion that it's probably the person who's been walking there who actually took the image. Way, very clever. But in interpretations, motives, our interpretations of other people's motivations are very much like those elusive footsteps. What's also very interesting about these footsteps is that about 30 seconds after this image was actually taken, the footsteps were gone. They disappear, don't they? Yes, and this leads me to the next point, causality-based thinking. Oh God, hello, welcome back. I'm actually going to back up a little while before I go into this, because I was going to talk about desire and I know. I'm going to write 3 words here, and then somebody, those of you who can actually read what I've written, are going to tell me what do these three words have in common? Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. What are these three? Yes.
Indulgence.
Indulgence, yes. And you said?
Joy.
Joy.
Pleasure.
Pleasure, indulgence, joy, pleasure, anything?
Escape.
Escape? Way. Any higher?
Adventure.
Adventure, yes. Anybody else? What's that?
Connection.
Connections? Yeah, maybe. So you, drugs, connections? No, that wasn't what you were thinking. But yes, I get the idea. Anybody else? What do these? I mentioned Blackout earlier, didn't I? That silly television show where you go into the dark room and then, well, sometimes you might from drugs get actually blackouts, but that's not really the association and the connection here.
Engage all the senses.
Yes, exactly, because what happens when you engage in sexual activities? Well, your sensory perceptions are heightened. You can get, so I'm told, anyway, I never inhaled, so I'm told that you can get very much the same effects from drugs, and I'm told that if you in fact listen to rock music while on drugs, engaging in sexual activities, you might be very close to heaven or hell, kind of depending on what your definition is. What's interesting about the whole idea of cultivating curiosity for you to be more, I wouldn't say assertive, but be more present with your masculinity, be more present as men in the world so that you may show up attractive, is that knowing these skill sets, and I keep on keeping you hanging on that, well, what are the skill sets? Do tell us. Being aware of these skill sets not only benefits you on a direct level. Ross talks about skill at feel, witness consciousness, being able to notice your own, not emotions necessarily, yes emotions, but also feelings. Where do they arise? And what is the color and the structure of these? Benefits you directly on the personal level. It also benefits you greatly when you're relating to other people, in relation to other people, but it also does something more, because when you can accurately, that was a hard word, accurately, when you can accurately display your, or demonstrate, I should say, demonstrate your understanding of these concepts. Some women, at least, are very, very intrigued. Because, and I do hate to generalize about women in general, but it's fair to say that intelligent and creative women at least, probably also a lot of other, quote, types of women, but intelligent and creative women at least, are very much interested in matters of the mind and very much interested in how the mind works and how feelings work and emotions work and how it all goes together in one big fantastic symphony of sensory and internal, what's the word I'm lacking here? Experiences?
Representation.
Representation. Yes, experience and representation. Experience is such a nice word. Experience is something that you've, when you got it, it's, you know, you wish that you had it before, but you can't really get it without doing what it is that you probably didn't set out to do, but then you did something else. And then you get the experience. And the clever ones take the experience and extract the learning from that and apply it to gain new experiences. But when you display that you have perhaps not an accurate representation or an accurate model even, but you have a vague idea of how the mind works. That's a brilliant theme to bring up in a conversation, isn't it? Pardon my French, but that kind of thing is going to give you quite large quantities of pussy. Why? Because we like talking about feelings and what we really like. And again, I'm generalizing, but what women often really like is if somebody can tell her something about herself, the way in which she works, because, you know, that's kind of like how all human beings work. You can find that common denominator, then she's going to go, oh, Really? You are so insightful. Wow, you know me so well. How can you know me so well? We have only just met each other. I think we have to shag now. Rather brilliant. So, I shall write some more. What would I like to write? Yes, you remember that I, in the beginning, sketched out the awareness filters, those things that tend to cloud our awareness, those those things that give us the internal dialogue, and those things that from the outside world cause us to not have an accurate representation and observation of the world. That causes us to ruminate and interpret instead of just observing and being aware. And I said that hope and fear is most certainly one of them. There is also, we actually might put them like so, and then we can go like this. Oh, knees and knee there. Desire and, good Lord. Okay, this actually says aversion. I don't know if you can. Okay, hope and fear and desire and aversion, yeah. Welcome to the chaotic mind. So, by the way, if anybody knows anybody who does courses in how to write a little neater on these things, please let me know. I'll give you my email address at the end of this talk. I would be much obliged. Hope and fear and desire and aversion, these things are very, very closely related. I don't know if, can anybody here give me an example of a situation where your fears got in your way? I'm sure you can, where your fears got in the way of getting what you really wanted or doing what you knew would work. Just any example would do.
Oh, I'm sure I've been into a job interview where my fear of the type of question to be posed of me has prevented me from answering the questions because I was ruminating over what questions that might be posed to me.
Yeah. So you weren't actually
focused on what might happen than what was actually happening.
Exactly. That you had, and what's really interesting is that very often when we have conflicting emotions, conflicting frustrations, or conflicting frustrations, that's actually quite interesting. When we have that confusion and frustration, it's never only one thing. Ross talked about this before the break, yes? That when we can deconstruct our emotions, and deconstruct our feelings, we can take them apart, just like that little radio or gadget we had when we were 4 years old and we desperately wanted to know how it would work. So we picked it apart, and when we put it back together again, somehow it didn't really work. That might not be the world's best metaphor, to be honest with you. However, it's rather accurate to what happens when we deconstruct our difficult emotions. When we put them back together again, they somehow don't really work the way that they worked before, which is a really good thing, right? Because you don't want to be getting in your own way just because you have frustrations and conflicting things that sort of fart about in your head. Like the idea of just emotions running around like little men, or penguins. So what we can do is that we can look at, instead of just calling something, that's why I really don't like the concept of approach anxiety, because it's like it's this one thing and how to cure approach anxiety and way, because that could be a lot of different things, couldn't it?